Now streaming on Sirius Joy is our monthly Moon Wisdom. Join host Gwen English in preparing for the transformational Scorpio moon energies. Only on SiriusJoy.com.
Just when you doze off in Libra bliss, Pluto strikes back. It's his revenge, and he saw everything. And he stations direct this Monday night, preparing for a possible wipeout on Wednesday. I'll have the stories of all zodiac signs in your soul horoscopes and your zodiac weather after this. Welcome to Namaste Today, featuring the soul horoscopes and the zodiac weather. My name is Christopher Witecki, Sensei Christopher Witecki. I'm a master step astrologer, and I'm kind of a historical mystic. I've been broadcasting on YouTube for nearly 20 years, preparing for the moment you are about to live, my friend. So this is a quasi-quantum interesting moment indeed. And I'd like to say thank you, by the way, for those who've been tuning in all these years, and thank you for helping our series along the way. That said, a little housekeeping. If you're watching on YouTube, please be kind and do subscribe. Hit your button, be kind, and just hit the bell button so you're notified. This is my little poem I always do. And if you don't mind, please hit that like button to let everyone know that you care and let YouTube know that we're staying here and staying here for good on the platform. And if you're watching on another series or another platform, please leave a comment. Tell us what you like about the series, what you'd like to see, and where you're coming from. We want to kind of understand our audience a bit more. And we also thank you all for supporting us every week and watching our show. And this week, some signs in the headlines are intense. This week, it comes down to Pluto's revenge, and he saw everything. Batten down your hatches, friends. Shift is coming in a mega way, and we're going to have a mega shift in the way we look at reality. Seriously, I know I maybe said that for a while, but we've been building up to it, and it's going to happen, and it starts to happen when the sun goes into Scorpio. Scorpio, by the way, is Pluto. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, the definite definer of all definition, the final boundary dropper. So wherever Pluto is, currently in our consciousness, we are rebuilding, re-breaking down. We're in a revolution. And this week, Pluto goes direct at step 1 Aquarius. That means that Pluto is going to have nothing to do with anyone that doesn't protect and love themselves like they have supposedly learned in the last 2 years. So what would test you in that case, right? You might be tested in that sense of how well you could love yourself. And you wonder, gosh, what's happened in history in regard to that same thing? Well, we've gone through this exact line before, this precise line where we are right now. That line is, we've gotten, up until now, Pluto and Aquarius has said, you've got to learn how to protect your heart, step 1. That's the most important thing. And we had other planets signing in at step 1 also during the whole method. So a huge harmony of step 1, love yourself, in the last 6 months in astrology, really unprecedented in history. The last time we didn't have such a whole party going on it, but the last time that happened was the American Revolution. In fact, it was October 15th, 1779, when Pluto stationed direct at 1 degree, just like it is now. So they'd had this build up to the forward, and now they had the Pluto going direct after the forward. It made me curious what would happen. Here in the United States, we've all been feeling this frustration ourselves. Lots of weird things happening in our society, not really going together as well. And so Pluto, retrograde up until this time, we were being tested on how well we could protect ourselves, preserve our heart, stay true, stay positive. All those types of things is really Pluto protecting the heart. And like I said, this week it goes direct. So what happened last time? Well, last time when Pluto's retrograde, just prior to this, the country was a mess because ultimately George Washington was still training the troops. But Great Britain was attacking with full-on soldiers and full-on militia. And so it was up to farmers, and it was like common people that were holding back the British troops up until that point. So think of yourself for the last 6 months if we had to hold back British troops. And that would be us protecting ourselves. So the protection was kind of based on an outside threat, and it was based on survival, and it was based on just getting through the day. Then when Pluto went direct, the actual winds of the war started to change a little bit. For one, we had George Washington now coming out, and the troops, of course, would be there for the Potomac in the future, that famous crossing of the Potomac. But what started to happen was just organization in general. The British started moving south. And so at that point, we started through a lot of, sneaky attacks like that we learned from the Indians. This is where we started to put our own commando, the beginning of our Vietnam sort of thought, right here in early America, becoming commando and hiding in bushes and really breaking the rules of the war. So using Pluto to break the rules of the war, but obviously also taking that self-love into a different direction. The self-love was no longer about survival. That's what the tone change really was. It seemed like the self-love was about thrival. that not only were the Americans going to win this thing, but they were going to win big, and also to some degree not be afraid to humiliate their opponent. If you bring that down to right now, it's kind of the same thing. Right now, we've had a hard time knowing who we are, what we want to do, where we want to go, because we've been looking at the war going out in our own lives and the things happening in our society that are breaking down, and people have sort of just tried to survive. But I think what's going to change is the same thing that changed last time. That coming this week on Monday, when Pluto goes direct, you're going to suddenly feel this strength of, it's not just about survival, it's about having the best time of my life. It's about thrival. And that, my friend, is the good juice for this week. So if it happened then and we did it, we can pull it off, and we didn't even have heat back then. We can do it now in a different way, a symbolic one. Now, before we dive into what Pluto will do for you in your horoscope, and I will talk about it for all 12 signs, let's take a look at the week's mood, shall we, and our zodiac weather with, by the way, our newest star to join the Sirius constellation. She's a staff astrologer, and coming back on the air for the first time, we have Sarah Batsky. Sarah, I'm glad you're on board. Welcome. But I want to ask you here for your opinion in the first week. What do you feel about Pluto going direct on Monday? From my seat, it feels like hell freezing over. What did you pick up?
I also know that Venus is back in Libra this week as well, so Spirit sent the Divine Feminine back home for some deep cleaning. Along with the trine to Pluto, she's in charge of what goes and what stays. This Zodiac weather report covers from Saturday, October 11th to Friday, October 17th, 2025, and is proudly sponsored by the Board of Light. The Board of Light is Sirius Joy's Conscious Congress of Leadership, and we're inviting you to become part of this exclusive opportunity to grow your own business with us. With guests like Lisa Brazelton and Sahara Rose paving the foundation for business breakthrough. Join our community now for only $250 per year and be a part of the enlightened professional revolution. Looking ahead at your weekend forecast, now that you have decided on a new plan for relationships, steps will be taken on Saturday and slow but steady progress on Sunday. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and wiser, as early in the morning, Venus in Virgo comes into an opposition with Saturn at 26 Pisces, asking for deeper opening through taking responsibility for whatever you are bringing in. Expect some checks and balances in the process, but remember, you have full editing rights. With today being a Mars ruled net 9 day, step 18 means tame that inner warrior to stay focused on making big moves towards the big goal, whether it is a new method of treatment or walking away from something life negating. A moon in busy Gemini brings curiosity with the process, but also connection. The root intention for today is I receive acts of change and affirm that I am protecting my heart's dream reality. On Sunday, it's sunny and productive. Step 19 is a ruling step number, which means that if you can keep up, you can be kept up today. Keep marching forward on the new that the heart is craving from the world. A moon in Cancer encourages opening to emotional flow, so ride the wave by taking time and space before reacting. Today's root intention is I receive culture shifts to account for everyone making moves today and not just us. So affirm that I am using neutral language to frame my future, as it is still in the making, no matter how it may look like now. Taking a look at the upcoming week, some big movement in the sky means big change with how we are taking our marriage to the world for validation. The week starts with a sensitive day on Monday to being head over heels on Tuesday, and given some uncomfortable yet big opportunities for healing on Friday. Let's dive deep. On Monday, it's cloudy and stirring, as our root intention for the day is I receive resilience, as a Cancer moon is stirring up plenty of emotions. The goal for today is to separate your feelings from everyone else's in order to get a clear read on next step. So affirm that I am creating personal space to be mindful of mine and your feelings. Looks like the answer is found, though, as after spinning in Virgo, Venus returns home vigilant to Libra and opposes her higher octave Neptune at 0 Aries. Take some time to open to what Spirit is sending down the pipeline and protect everything sacred. Because the executioner himself, Pluto, stations direct at 1 Aquarius. Intensity now mounts as it is time to grow into a new frequency. Tuesday's weather is sunny and sincere, as step 21, when it starts to get fun, rules the day. Today is all about satisfying that childlike curiosity, so take some time to explore. And not only is that optimism shining through, but Lady Venus in Libra trines not only Uranus, but Pluto as well today, bringing together a grand air trine, linking thoughts, belonging, and opening to a new beginning and relating to the self. The root intention for today is I receive higher love, so use this energy to fill the heart and then some for the road ahead. The moon begins in late Cancer and shifts to Leo, priming the heart for giving and receiving. The affirmation of the day is loving myself more. I have more love to share. Wednesday's weather is sunny and speculating, as a 22 Libra day brings big feelings bouncing around partnerships. Expect a breakdown or two when it comes to the grand plan, but remember it's just an opportunity for redirection. Ride the waves of uncertainty by staying connected to your feelings in real time to navigate to your own heart, and only intend to bring in what feels good. A moon in Leo gives the opportunity to do just that, so use that power to feel good about that unplanned redirection. The root intention is I receive new dynamics, and the affirmation for today is negotiating fairness between new and old feelings. Thursday is sunny and reasonable, bringing in a step 23 Libra day and bringing an understanding for the redirection that may have happened yesterday. Today's root intention is I receive insight, which comes from drilling down into those feelings in order to determine what you believe. Then, you know what needs work. If there is a healthier way of dealing with your feelings in partnership, that may be fully understood today, as the affirmation is, I am understanding my role in relationships. The moon in late Leo shifts into early Virgo, wrapping the heart around the mind and feeling out a method for healing. Friday brings in the culmination to a busy week, as early in the morning the sun squares Jupiter, 24 Cancer, giving expanding optimism where it may be needed, but maybe some reality checks if Libran balance has not been adhered to. Later in that evening, the sun also opposes Chiron at 24 Aries, which is squaring Jupiter as well. This can bring in vulnerability to the max if there have been some hiding from less than feelings. So keep opening to the new and accept the whole of you. The moon in Virgo today can take this energy and make it work, but there needs to be an agreement with your ego. And today's root intention is I receive agreement and affirm that I am facilitating healing with spiritual diplomacy. As Jupiter and Chiron square go on for some time, recognize that spiritual diplomacy is the goal for the next few weeks. So, all in all, a very Venusian week. As I was saying earlier, Divine Feminine to the rescue. Back to you.
Are you looking for inspiration to grow your conscious business? Sirius Joy's Board of Light is a sacred alliance of lightworkers, visionaries, and spiritual leaders dedicated to awakening conscious leadership. As a member, you'll receive professional support in the forms of bi-monthly Congress of Light meetings, exclusive community networking, and an array of guest speaker webinars each month to guide you on your personal dreams. First quarter guest highlights include consciousness architect Lisa M. Brazelton, Dharma coaching expert Sahara Rose, and Chiron specialist Karen Croney. Don't miss this profound lineup of wisdom. Join now for only $250 per year and be a part of the enlightened professional re-evolution. What are you waiting for?
It's in the stars to seriously change your life with a subscription to Sirius Joy. Sign up now for your personalized step astrology and daily pep talks. Highly predictive astrology sent via text and email. Daily Zodiac weather reports. Advanced lectures, classes, edutainment series, and more. Sign up today for only $3.99 to seriously change your life. Only on SiriusJoy.com.
This Scorpio season, embark on a journey of self-discovery. Create your soul manifesto. Unveil your purpose. Live your truth. Welcome to 40 Days of My Truth and Purpose. Enrolling now, only at Sirius Joy Academy.
And now on to our soul horoscopes, our planets, and our transits for the week. Everyone's favorite part of the show. Well, it's going to be a difficult week to some degrees. We have to level up. This week, the sun goes from step 18 to step 24, Libra. Now, 18, 19, 20, that is the second chapter. 20 through 24 is the third chapter, the master chapter. So you could say we sort of go into some emotional rapids, which will happen right after the weekend, where things start to speed up. We become even more sensitive. Up until now, Libra, first of all, is a sensitive sign. It is the listening sign. It's a sign that takes everything in. But it's only been taking in what our heart wanted in the teen degrees. Now when we get to 20s, we're looking at everything our feelings want and what our heart wants, and that's when things get a little sticky. Energetically, I'm calling this week Pluto's Revenge, because Pluto is coming back direct on Monday. And this is Pluto's had enough, because it's the last time Pluto will cross over step 1 Aquarius for its transit. I'm talking 245-year transit, 49-year transit. So for the last time for 249 years, Pluto will be over step 1, the demand and command that you must love yourself. I'll be predicting for each of the 12 signs where you could have something sort of blow up in your face if you fail to actually love yourself before you go out there and try to do it. Now, that's just the first of 3 important dates this week. That will be on Monday, by the way, when Pluto goes direct, which is pretty much theming the whole week in that sense. But we also have another event that happens on the weekend prior. Before Pluto goes direct and raises hell or freezes it over, we have Venus in opposition of Saturn retrograde at 26 Pisces, Venus in Virgo. So as you start through the weekend, you're going to realize you have to make a commitment to a future you actually believe in and you have faith in. And so that belief and faith comes down to how you feel and whether or not your heart quivers at the idea. So in each of the horoscopes, I'll talk about this dynamic introduction of how you're opposing this, and then we'll talk about afterwards what Pluto direct will mean, because Pluto's going to move forward with whatever that commandment is. The following fascinating date to talk about will be next Friday. On Friday, we have an interesting thing going on. What ultimately is happening is the Sun in Libra is going to square Jupiter in Cancer. Now, whenever the Sun squares Jupiter, it means there's a change in people's story or there's a change in what people believe about the future. But what's interesting about this time is that Sun that is squaring Jupiter, it's also opposing Chiron at the same degree, step 24. That means we have 3 major planets all in a 24 configuration. What is 24? It's how you feel about the future. If you feel you're going to be on the right path or not the right path. So for each of the 12 signs, we'll also talk about that. We'll talk about whether or not you feel at the end of the week you'll be on the right path, and I'll speculate what that right path may be. And let's start with the Aries. Aries, the trailblazers of the new reality, and that is literally the case. With the Sun in Libra right now, you are developing a new approach to relationships at large. You've already developed them. It's now time to put into action. So as we move into over the weekend, it's time to move forward now with what your promises were to your partners, to your allies. This is friends. This is romantic. This is all types of relationships that are functional and part of day to day. This momentum starts to get going, and then you will then focus on next week really defining what the perfect long-term relationship is. Not the practical ones, but what you want to get married to. And this is interesting because looking at the stuff we have going on with the 324s, I'll talk about it here in a second, it means that 24 is a Libra ruled degree. You are the opposite of Libra. And so your actions are just as important as the Librans as far as setting up for what relationships will be in the next era. I think really what's happening here is you're experimenting with what the new world relationship should be. What kind of long-term partnership is it? And there's a lot of theories out there, especially with the millennials, about how things might change in that regard. So for you, the key is to listen to your heart, all right, when you make these decisions. If you rule from the heart over the weekend and you move forward with marriage and partnership in the way you want to do it, I think you'll be on to a good potential. But realize that because you're going to be a trailblazer like you are, you'll be emotionally sensitive to other people's opinions next week. So you have to be really self-centered in your emotions and nurture yourself, not get carried away. Now that's the setup, and away you will float. You'll be working on how you move into relationships, how you groove with relationships, and then Pluto, of course, is going direct. Pluto going direct means that while you're launching relationships and marriage, you are also feeling like you have to love yourself when you put yourself in the world. That means that there'll probably be some dramatic, maybe a little too harsh, maybe a little too clumsy changes in how you behave in society. Maybe you're no longer going to be, giving it all away at the football game, but at the same time, you're actually going to try to smile for your driver's license photo. Like there's just going to be changes in how you express yourself. Ultimately, you must protect your heart and what your heart's interest is in the world, and make sure no matter what's happening, you are officially making sure your heart or your child gets what he or she wants in the deal. And then, of course, what is the deal when we have that opposition? The Sun squaring Jupiter for you on Friday means that your heart is going to be sort of torn between partnerships and your home life. And you're going to realize that you have to think home life and partnerships at the same time, but not just home life, how you want to feel for a long term. So I guess it's saying you must now be aware of how your relationships make you feel in the long term and make some more long-term decisions or adjustments from that perspective. The other opposition to Chiron says this process of balancing relationships with home family, this is going to actually heal your ego in a big way. You're going to realize the soft little final touch that was necessary for your ego, and it's going to give you some sort of insight of the character of who you want to be going forward. So very much a relationship-based transit that leaves you with a sculpted new you. Taurus, with the Sun in Libra, you are now starting to put the final touches on how to operate in your day-to-day life. That's where Tauruses get out of touch. They get overextended and then underextended and then over, because you go from pleasure to work, from pleasure to work. And so this year, I think you are really challenged to find a new tightrope that's not so tight. ultimately. So as we start in the beginning of the week with the sun moving from 18 to 20, you're now putting into motion a new way of life, okay? A new way of operations, we should say. And that operation must be always mindful of your heart, always mindful of how balanced you are in any moment. Then as we go to step 20, now it turns into the passion of life. And the passion of life comes down to when so many things are happening, you're not able to really get your full hooves into what you want. So you have to kind of go with how you feel. I always talk about it's basically a bull in a rowboat where you're just kind of mooing and feeling like you're stuck in a rowboat. You're going to literally learn how to balance your weight into a rowboat is what I believe. And what this is ultimately doing is giving you a mastery and finesse to your performance, the way you perform anywhere in life. This is about being a master of your performance. And that means staying in balance, staying fluid, and staying creative because you're very creative by nature. Now, when Pluto goes direct for you, this means that your career and legacy are now moving forward. You're going to find that suddenly events in your career, events in your plans, events in your strategy are now moving forward. But you must, each step you take, each decision you make must honor self-love, which means it must honor the creative part of you or the artist in you. You could say another way to put it for Tauruses is that you must include the artist in everything you do. That art part of you is your inner child, and you are here to make some beautiful things. Now, at the end of the week, we have that phenomenon with the 324s. The 324s for you is, first of all, that you will have your health. Your health is one thing, the sun in Libra. How healthy are you? How balanced is your life? But then also looking at how your mind and your mindset get in the way of your health. That a certain attitude leads into dis-ease and a certain other attitude leads into healthiness. So putting together where health it comes and co-triggers your ability to stay balanced in the moment and how your mind can be a disruptor to your health and your moment. The other opposition to look at is to Chiron at 12th house. And what this means is you're also looking at how by finding that balance in life and, sort of squaring it off with the right attitude, you really will start to see your faith in yourself open up and probably adopt a new view in faith. In fact, I argue that Tauruses will be somewhat reborn in their faith over the course of this week, particularly next Friday when those all hit 24. But the key, remember, Taurus, is to feel you belong in peace, to feel you belong with no karma, to feel you belong working with the company of heaven, and some of your work to be part of a heavenly side connect as well. So I think part of what Tauruses are realizing too is if you're more balanced in yourself and balanced in your faith, then you really can channel your life's work. Gemini, Sun in Libra for you is about finding the balance in your heart for personal dreams. And you may wonder, what are you fighting for balance with? Your mind. I think for Geminis, you let your mind override. You end up thinking about things you don't love, going down rabbit holes of just facts and figures, and really at the same time ignoring what your heart wished you could be talking about or you could be exploring. So a lot of times you have not let your heart choose what to think about. And that is the alignment. Now, that is the path of your personal dreams. It is now time for Geminis to have a lot of sugar, fun, and creativity in their life. The first 2 days, 18 to 20, steps 18 through 20, is about you launching some sort of creative project, maybe getting started in a love affair, getting started in the pursuit of something you love, let's put it that way. Then the passion comes on from step 20 to 24. And the second part of the week is really about you just kind of staying grounded with all the emotion. You are an intellectual, you are an air sign, but water, emotion, this does short circuit a bit. And so you're learning how to stay sort of dry as you drive after your personal dreams. That's the arc of what Libra is. Now, on the other side of this course is Aries. And so what you're manifesting in the background from that is that you are manifesting a new belief in yourself altogether. And you're manifesting a place in the world, that you have a place in the world, and that place is uniquely yours. So you're doing a transformation in the background and really setting up the stage for a new reputation, which we'll talk about here in just a minute with Chiron. But Pluto going direct at 1 degree means something else. It means that you must now love yourself and therefore believe in yourself. You must give yourself the benefit of the doubt and no longer sweep yourself under the bus if you don't have the answer. That's not very loving. Basically, your belief structure needs you to love it so that you start to feel and believe that you are intelligent and beyond. And of course you are, but your belief structure doesn't really follow through. So right now, Pluto will be causing destruction if you try to play the old game of, I don't know, or maybe I'm not right, or any kind of detour to rather, I love myself and I know what I'm talking about is true. That love to belief in yourself is the key. Then, of course, we have the 3 points I was talking about. The first point, ultimately, that happens this week is going to be this opposition, as I talked about with the sun in Libra and within Aries, and how as you go into the chapter changes, it's trying to move up the notch when it comes to, again, your heart's personal dreams and your place in society. Then Pluto direct is the second one. We talked about that, meaning it's time to believe in yourself. But the third one is when you really kind of define sort of a utopia. It comes from the sun at 24 Libra squaring Jupiter in Cancer. This means that you're going to find yourself in a bit of a tug of war or have to figure things out in regard to how do I pursue my personal dreams and also make money. And right now, the planets show that you don't believe that you can do both. Something in your wiring says that that's not possible. But the universe says, of course it is. So you come over that square. And once you understand that you can have money and pursue your dreams, then you start to realize that your ego is starting to heal, that you may really be able to find and accept that place in the society that's meant for you. Cancers! Cancers, this week, what you are doing is finding some emotional balance and tranquility with your feelings at large. Libra is how you try to stay in balance with your own feelings. And usually the way you've been out of balance is that you failed to nurture yourself. So you've been showing up to the table empty, which then exaggerates everything you put your energy into. But now I think you have a plan to feel better. That might be through routine or investment or yoga or something like that. And then as we go into step 20s, we now get to the deep part of the ocean where for the last 4 degrees, 20 through 24, you'll be feeling just how deep things go. And you'll be reaffirming that you have the right path to emotional security. So this arc of the sun in Libra for you is really about getting to that master's race and emotionally feeling calm no matter what hits you. After all, you're the most emotionally mature of the zodiac in all the signs. So you ought to be really almost bulletproof when it comes to things being thrown at you and being able to stay calm and steady. You'll be developing exactly where you belong or where you belong aiming for by Friday. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. The other point, of course, is that Pluto is now direct as of Monday. And this means that you must now protect loving yourself everywhere in your life. You're going to need to enforce boundaries everywhere, at work, in relationships, when you go to the bathroom, everywhere, friendships, where that your heart will be protected, that you will make sure your inner child has all of its needs. And this is really a lesson of boundaries. This is a lesson about taking space. This is a lesson about taking the proper time. You must make sure that your inner child baby is not mishandled. So is the moving forward with boundaries and seeing whether or not they stick. Stay tuned for that. We'll have to see. And then lastly, this point I have is on Friday, where I talk about the sun is going to square Jupiter and oppose Chiron. This opposition and square means for you, first of all, your heart, which is the sun, has got to work at opening up to ultimately being, for you, what will give you the greatest emotional foundation. So it's about how can I be founded? How can I feel grounded? How can I have a home that will nurture me and take care of me? But on the other hand, Jupiter in your sign is expanding your ego, making your personality try all sorts of things. So you're trying to find a really balance between being grounded and practical at home, but also being strong and being assertive in your present, having the strength and also the ability to float. And so I think you're going to find some balancing there. And then, of course, lastly, the sun, which is in Libra, will oppose Chiron at 24 degrees in Aries. What this means is that as you nurture and find that emotional foundation, you're going to find that your career, the part of you that goes out for the career, tries to leave a mark, finally knows the right way to stand. In other words, it balances your approach in career. And for career, I know it's been hot and cold. There's been a lot of disasters for you, a lot of accidents in that Aries energy along the years. But now I feel like you're going to really feel your confidence start to heal, and you start to come into the executive personality, for lack of a better term, of who you're going to be in the world. So it's simple. Simply by nurturing yourself more, all these things turn on. Leos, this energy of Sun in Libra has to do with the balancing of your thoughts. And I think one thing you've realized in this transit, and maybe you haven't, is that the way you talk to yourself is everything. The way you bounce off yourself, the way you respond to yourself, every response is either setting you up for success or setting you up for a step back. And so now as we begin the week, the sun goes from 18 to 19 to 20 Libra. And so you're going to put into motion some sort of formal communication approach. It may be a literal thing that you're going to start like a blog or start a podcast or something like that, something literal. Or it might be something more figurative that you're going to now approach. Your intellect is going to approach the world from a different perspective. And I would say a lot of the perspective has been, an imbalance as far as the attention you expected. I think a lot of Leos speak as if they're wanting to hear more or wanting everyone to be quiet and listen more. And so you started off, I think, with yourself kind of out of balance with just your approach altogether. But it does mean you'll probably start to work on some sort of master message next week. Once we hit step 20, a message that brings up emotion, a message that needs to balance your heart's desires and dreams with how you feel about the situation. And that's where things will get a little complicated. But on the flip side of that, it's going to help you tremendously with your Chiron. We'll talk about that in just a minute. One thing to point then, of course, is Pluto going direct in Aquarius. This means that you are now at a time, Pluto is going to wreak destruction if you don't love yourself in every moment of your relationship to yourself. Every time you look in that mirror or don't have a mirror and can't look, you must follow through and love yourself. You might be challenged where someone asks a favor of you or tempting you away from loving yourself, or someone distracts you, making you forget to love yourself. And so there'll be all sorts of those types of examples. But if you fail to love yourself and put your heart intentions first, I think you're going to find that relationships do go a bit haywire starting next week. But there is going to be a harmony of understanding where to point. In fact, considering you're working on relationships, you're lucky that we have this 3-point step 24 moment. This is where the sun will first square Jupiter. Now, for you, this means that your heart is going to realize that the tone you take in your mind about the future has to be equal to what you have faith in. And in some cases, you don't have faith where your mind is very confident. So why isn't there faith there? In other cases, you have faith, but your mind can't figure out what the hell and why. And so what you're learning to do is sort of merge your lower mind with your higher mind, your spiritual mind with your actual mouth. And so that's what the square is being, is sort of pushing you towards using both voices, both faith and also the appropriate voice. Now, the opposition to Chiron is what I was talking about. Same day is at step 24, Aries. And this means that as you finally find that perfect way to craft the message, to express yourself, you at the same time will understand what your legacy is. You'll be able to accept and receive the special part of you. And so I kind of get the hint that whatever tone you take, whatever voice you find with the sun in Libra, is probably directly related to either your book title or however you're going to be passing on your knowledge once you go. Virgo, this week is all about finding a balance and balancing your checkbook. Literally, you are balancing out the income, the cost and revenue, all the flows of paying and also receiving. You're finessing really your business plan for the year and your plan to get abundant also. And so you feel in your heart this week, moving forward with some sort of financial strategy. That may be a long-term or a short-term financial strategy, but it's a strategy. And hopefully you are being mindful of your heart along the way, that your heart has to weigh in on these choices. Maybe a stock is paying really well and is a good investment, but your heart doesn't like that stock. And maybe your heart doesn't like that stock because your heart knows in the company of heaven that stock is going down, right? So listen to your heart and incorporate that into your moment. Then things will get a little passionate. Hopefully they're passionate because money's coming in. But in some cases, it gets passionate because money is running out. Depends on the way the person works and lives. So really, you're going to learn that as you move into the end of the week, your feelings bring so much to your credibility. And that if you don't come to the table feeling great about life, I don't think people who are spending money will feel great about buying your product. You're starting to learn that translates like literally. But that's a good thing. You need to learn that, and you're going to learn that. You're not going to have it be a problem going forward, I don't believe, for the Virgos. This is really a finessing to a lifetime's realizations. Pluto direct, however, in Aquarius at step 1 does mean that you must now live high vibe day to day, that the self-love must be in every step you take. Every step you take, every breath you take, you need to love yourself, basically. And that means to be a feeling that you feel in that case. Now, you may think, well, that's a lot of work. We're at step 1, Aquarius. Okay. There's 28 more steps. So your love potential and your ability to love yourself is going to go higher every year for quite a long time, at least a decade. So let's get started and let's not worry about it so much because it's bringing you a life of joy. Now, the other aspect that's important is at the end of the week. At the end of the week, we have the sun square Jupiter. Now, that squares at step 24, Cancer. For you, this means that you will have some sort of a square or a lock, basically a tug of war, between your understanding of your faith in life, and what you feel you can have faith about, okay? Well, really your place in the world is what it comes down to that leads to your faith. You're going to realize that if you give yourself the credit, all right, then you will see the public gives you the credit and you will feel the faith. That's what it comes down to. If you don't give yourself the credit, if you sort of weigh slightly against you or round down in your measurements of your investments of yourself, you're going to find that your light goes dim and the world sort of surrounds that feeling that's happening. And you're learning that your feelings do most of the work as far as who's attracted to you, the business that's attracted to you, and everything else. Now, the other thing that's important is that sun that's working on really balancing out, again, your budget, has to also realize that now you can let go and relax a little. The sun will be opposing Chiron at 24, which means, hey, it's time to have a relationship with change. Rather than being always resisting change or picking up and putting down change, let's do a long-term relationship with change. Let's do a whole approach to how we change and what we do when we change. So I think really by Friday, if you haven't changed, you'll have the spiritual understanding of what it will take to change. Libras! Happy birthday, Libras! This is going to be a compelling year for you because you are getting an entire ego upgrade in this birthday period. Now, if you don't know what that means, it means you're probably screwing up all the time, making mistakes, dropping things, just not performing at all. That's because your operating system, your ego, is outdated. And you've always been a person that claimed to not have ego. So in some cases, it's been very hard to find where you store that ego in your consciousness because you hid it from yourself. But now you have found it. And this week, with the sun going from 18 to 24, you're going to sort of beta test this new version of how you relate to others. Your relationship approach, your relationship patterns, your relationship responses, these are all getting newly reprogrammed intentions. And so you start to play and test some of those out up till step 24, where you'll probably find the sweet spot, the Goldilocks spot of just perfect of how you ought to behave and act. Now, of course, while this is happening, you are sweet talking, and smoothing out your interface, how you relate and not relate. But also happening at the same time is Pluto direct in Aquarius. Pluto Aquarius says Libras have to actually love what they're doing, love who they are, and your heart can no longer be not satisfied. If your heart is not satisfied, you are in a dangerous position. Pluto's going to start to moving direct and sort of destroy things that are in the way there. So there's only one way to go, and that's with what your inner child wants, and to embrace what your inner child wants, period. That's what's being said. So with Pluto direct now, it's your child's way, your inner child's way, or the highway. And we get to Friday, we come to a final turning point for the week, which is the sun will first of all square Jupiter in Cancer. This means that your heart, which is working on a new personality, a new wardrobe, a new expression of yourself, maybe a new title that you get from work, has got to cooperate with overall what you feel about the future and the right decisions to take. That you're going to have to feel your way through how to go and which way to go. And as you feel your way of which way to go, not logical, it's got to be in concert and in harmony work, or like in partnership with this new ego expression of yourself. And so I think to some degree, what's surprising to Libras is the new expression of yourself is a lot more Aries-like. It's a lot more bold, direct, in your face, but kind, smooth, and suave like you are. Now, at the end of the week, you hit that 24 mark, that triple 24 effect. And for you, this means that you will find, first of all, a square between the sun and Cancer. That is you going to be you having the tug of war of having to work out your personality versus your values and your decisions. But then when it opposes Chiron and Aries, this is where it gets interesting. I think you're going to find the final piece for how to have the perfect marriage or partnership. And I think it's because you're looking at yourself in daily life and in career, and you're sort of out there in the world trying to sell yourself in a different way than relationships, career. That sort of feeds back into this wisdom that comes in about how you belong approaching emotionally a long-term relationship. Your approach, according to astrology, has been what's wrong. Like you're approaching it as a victim, or you're approaching it as, this person's going to be a makeover. I'm going to make this person over and make them beautiful. That approach that you have on long-term relationships, you can say the emotional prejudice is the same thing as the approach. That seems to be what the problem is. So considering Cancer energy for you has to do with usually your career and where you're going with your career, and you sort of like turn emotions into a career thing and a career tool, you're going to have to really get deep on how you actually truly feel about long-term partnerships, because what's at stake here is really the power you deserve and also the relationship pattern you're switching to. But it's a big deal. Libra's changing the relationship pattern means that we're about to change relationships for the entire Earth altogether. Exciting to watch. Scorpio. Scorpios are doing a transformation this week when it comes to long-term faith. And it's funny because Scorpios act more guarded. They act more in control of their shift. And they usually don't really reveal these things. But they've actually been talking to me, Scorpios off camera, about how they're having to just have more faith and calm down and just listen to God. And whereas the old Scorpio would go on like a mega, red alert, you are learning now just keep it smooth with God, keep it smooth with your faith in yourself, and faith that you didn't, choose the worst lifetime in the world, because we do make this choice to be here, and we choose most of the major attractions, believe it or not. So you're smoothing out now the ability to stay smooth with faith, to keep logged into faith all the time, rather than coming in emergency and leaving, coming in emergency and leaving. You see, once Scorpios and Scorpio risings can really monitor a steady faith, which means you're always in touch with the heaven, you're always in touch with your higher self, you're always aware that there are no warnings coming down, there's no official goosebumps for bad stuff happening. When you have that live radar, that spiritual karmic radar always active, this gives you the ability to say no, really, in daily life. And you may be surprised for me to say that. Well, since when can Scorpios not say no? Well, Scorpios are smart. They kind of look at it this way. If they say no, it's probably going to start a war. And it's not that they don't want to try to avoid conflict. It's they're trying to avoid war. And so a lot of times I think Scorpios have taken it, not said anything, not brought it up because they knew it would disturb the peace. They knew it would be a problem. But this particular week is telling us, hey, you actually have the right to disturb the peace if necessary for you to be happy. And so this comes down to your emotional security. That's what I'm talking about next. As you are moving forward to this new faith and you're changing daily life and daily routines, you're also having Pluto direct saying, hey, it's now time for you to make sure you're emotionally okay no matter what. So some of Scorpio's habits of overreaching, overstinging, going too far is because they were so vulnerable and they didn't really have the right emotional foundation. They came from a bad home. They came from a bad crystal, basically, and they did not know how to create into a good crystal. So the Pluto direct says, okay, that's it. We've taught you everything you need to know. Either you protect your inner child or shut up. Don't complain about your childhood ever again. We just won't hear it, okay? And you'll find that's where the tolerance starts to end. Talking about your childhood pain, you just had a whole transit of Pluto to help you build that and rebuild it. So no excuses on that one. The other issue is, of course, this thing going on with the sun squaring Jupiter at the end of the week. Now, the sun for you is in the house of faith. So your heart is getting closer by this time to what do I really feel and surrender as far as faith is? What do I have faith in? Do I have faith in, the angels? Do I have faith in God? Do I have faith in karma? Do I have faith in science? What do I have faith in? What do I feel I belong having faith in? That is a huge rite of passage that has to happen, because once that does happen, now you will understand much more specifically how it is that your lifestyle can heal. Because many times your lifestyle has gone to where it's gone, not because it was going to be hell, but because you didn't have any faith to get you through the hard times. Now, lastly, what ends up happening is that square to Cancer, and that says, you know what? Your belief in yourself is just as important as having faith and feeling good in the moment. In fact, the three really work together. That's the big 24 lesson, that you will believe in yourself when you are really bringing down the trauma between faith versus reality, and also you're going with your feelings. Feelings meaning you feel like it's going to be okay, and so you let it just be because you feel it. You give feelings the credit, is what I'm trying to say. Sagittarius. Sag, it's exciting times. You are changing the balance of you in society. You're probably changing the role of you in society, and you're probably bringing some peace to some recent issues that might have been a little bumpy and had some turbulence. In fact, when the sun goes to 18 and then to 20, you're really moving into now a new place in the world. Now, that place may be where it's always fair for one, so that place might be where you're always wanting an affair, you're excited and happy, or that could be that a place in the world where you are doing your spiritual work and bringing justice back to the world. You restore balance by nature, but you throw balance off in the beginning. That's how you tend to roll. So the hard part will be that once you start feeling people's opinions come back, whether you're launching a campaign at work, or you're launching a product or service, or you're just launching a new title, maybe something, whatever it is, it's making waves and it's in the public. And so you'll get a wave of feelings coming back to you. And if you feel strong and still centered when that happens, then good job. You are on the right path. Now, with that said, we also have construction underground. We have Pluto going direct on Monday in Aquarius. Now, what this means for you is that you're going to have to realize that you've got to keep an energy of self-love going on all the time in your thoughts about yourself. There must be this pre-thought of I love myself and. In fact, I would argue for Sagittarius is don't say anything in your mind about yourself unless it starts with I love myself and. Not I let myself up, but I let myself and. Pluto says you have got to keep that happy inner child, that child from Disneyland, protected, basically. I say Disney because Walt Disney was a Sag. And so if you keep that inner child kind of protected inside of yourself in all of your speech, you're going to find that everything in your life starts to work on a different level. And that's what Pluto's here to teach. Now, Pluto direct means you're out of time, so be careful what you say. You might put your foot in your mouth. The last of anything is important is the sun opposing Chiron and squaring Jupiter. For you, that means that your heart is going to come to a place where you feel a new tranquility, a new potential for a long-term change and long-term transformation. And so that you ultimately will find yourself, I think, in the long run, feeling good about what you say and feeling good about what you do. Why is that? Well, first of all, for you, the opposition is about your 11th and your 8th house. You've always been this person in the world, but was it what your heart really wanted? Was your heart really challenged to do? And so I think you find by the end of the week, the place to be who you want to be in the world. And I think for finally, because you find your place in the world, you find your posse, you find your niche, you find your brand, your heart goes through a real healing that means something. So I think Sagittarius are going to have their hearts sort of heal by the end of the week and understand that, hey, your heart can have what you want in the world and your heart can have what it wants personally, both. And that you didn't have to sacrifice one for the other. The square to Jupiter in Cancer says emotions will have to be nurtured. That for you to pull off that perfect balance between society and inner child, you're going to have to really be good at your emotional boundaries. In other words, some feelings don't belong at the dinner table. Some feelings don't belong at the event. Some feelings don't belong in your system at all. And so if you craft your feelings to be protecting the ones that are good and helpful and discarding the rest of the feelings and not going there, you're going to find that that balance in the world really comes down to the fact that you've got your feelings squared inside. So it is learning about emotional intimacy and connection, at the same time finding your place, at the same time rescuing the inner child. Capricorns, this is typically your favorite time of the year, but not this year. I've talked to a lot of Capricorns. You're not happy with this year's career transit. That's because just as you go through your career, shifts hitting the fan. But that's okay. You've always managed to dominate and own most of the world anyway, so don't worry. But it does mean that you're going to be feeling back and forth, a little antsy about where your career is going, where your legacy is going, where you hope to have things unfold in the future as far as your placement in the world. And as that unfolds and you find that place, you're going to find at the same time, you directly affect your emotional security. In fact, Chiron at 24 degrees is saying Your emotional security is basically wound up in what you overextend yourself in your world or career or what you don't. All right. So finding that balance between the two, the decision and also the nurturing necessary. But Pluto going direct into Aquarius does say that you must now go only after money that's tied to self-love. Did you hear me say that? You can only go after money that's tied to self-love. If you don't love yourself for doing it, it's not going to succeed. This is how God Universe slowly brings the crooked Capricorns out of the bad businesses, because they'll find that you just don't make the money, you just don't make the job, you just don't get the check in the mail if you're not loving what you're doing. Interesting, right? Now that brings us to the third point of the week, which is the Sun opposing Chiron. By the end of the week, after you've worked through a lot of feelings about career and direction, you'll find the Sun opposing Chiron says, hey, does this make us feel stronger? Do these decisions make us more connected and more family-like? Or does this career decision actually pull us away from home and family, pull us away from security? And I will say that obviously is the wrong choice to make, to pull away from that foundation. But the fact that the Sun squares Jupiter says something else is going to happen. You're going to come to a realization, in essence, that for you and your emotions, you've got to have a good emotional relationship with your partner, with the people who are important in your life, and your LTRs, your long-term relationships. That if you can flow well with your long-term relationships and be mature there, you'll have no problems really not taking too much in your career, and no problem staying emotionally founded in your actual home and family. So the magic for Capricorns really is, if you haven't put it together yet, is that, hey, if you want to be really successful, it means you actually have to be really good at home. You have to be really good at nurturing your own feelings. You have to be really tied to a deep, rich, emotional, committed relationship. Because it appears that when you are in emotionally committed relationships where you're committed to the feelings of being together, not just the act of being together, it actually is the one thing that kind of squares and holds you up in being the person you're born to be, and not stomping on your emotion, your family, or your emotional foundation. So really what you're realizing is, hey, the better I feel, the more money I make, as long as I'm making money based on what my heart truly loves. We'll see. I'm watching you, Capricorns. I'm watching you close. We'll see. Aquarius, interesting times. Well, for one, this is hitting you a lot, my friend. The Sun in Libra is an air sign just like yourself. And so you'll find that you are very back and forth with all these winds of discussion. And for you, it's about, what do you believe your purpose is anyways? Where are you heading with this purpose thing? You're not quite sure what you should open up and just totally accept. You're not sure what you can swallow for yourself, because I'm sure it feels very grand at the moment because you're waking up to all your talents and possibilities with Pluto and Aquarius. So your heart is really this week invested in surrendering to the path of least resistance when it comes to how you believe in yourself and what your purpose is and where you're going. That's it. What is my purpose? Do I believe that? Let myself float in that direction. I'm sure your purpose is really wonky and really different, but you are part of what you do here is help us have balance to enlightened information. So whatever your thoughts are about your education and your vision, they're probably tied to your contribution to society itself. Now, that said, Pluto direct in Aquarius means something else has to be happening. You have to love every minute now. You're being forced, not asked, forced to really believe ultimately in the sauce, okay? So energetically, you can no longer be in a situation where you may not really have the inner, how do I put this? You might not really have in your heart like the character to follow your heartstrings. You might not really have the courage to go for what you really want. And Pluto is breaking through all of your ego issues at one degree, so that the Sun in Libra can really bring to light your purpose and your mastery and what you're here to do. So Pluto going direct says that you're going to have the strength from your ego to put self-love in everything you do. If you don't go out of the box and love yourself with every intention, then these other things will go falling apart, like your love life and your personal beliefs and what you really want to do, because you're not loving yourself from the get-go. A way to really understand this is, now that Pluto's direct, if you don't love yourself, the world won't like you either. And so you kind of got this direct law of attraction thing happening, instant karma, if you will. The last point of the 324s I was talking about, and this is where energetically the Sun will square Jupiter. The Sun is actually focused on your belief structures and finding that purpose and finding that calling in life that you can really surrender to. But Jupiter in the fifth says, Jupiter in the sixth says, can you really live a life that's that passionate? Can you handle all the emotions that it's going to handle? Can you handle all the drama that's going to come with it? And I think to some degree you have thwarted your purpose, because you know it comes with a lot of emotion, a lot of emotional people, passionate colleagues, for instance, maybe a passionate industry. But you have different beliefs now about how to manage passion. You have different beliefs about how to approach, people with a lot of drama. And so you're going to be working out with this square, how to both live your purpose and at the same time be nurtured, not feel like you're on another planet by doing so. The fact that it opposes Aries, and Chiron and Aries says that by doing this and achieving this, you're no longer going to think you're crazy. And that may sound crazy, but honestly, Aquariuses have always been a little too aggressive in their thinking. And so they have also in their self-judgment. And so I think you're going to realize that your mind is on the right track, that you are not Neanderthal, you're not behind the times, or you're not the weird one in the classroom. You've actually just been in a little bit of a war with your own thinking because you haven't really been clear on what your belief is in the background. So you could say that Aquarius sort of open up and share some ideas as they really relax about purpose and they find the emotional sweet spot to daily life. And then the Pisces. Pisces, this is a brutal one, but in a good way. This next week of the Sun in Libra is about you finding a new relationship to the idea of change. You need to get married to the idea that you're always, always, always going to change. Now, I know that you know that because you have done that your whole life, but did you really accept it as a fact and a way and means? And did you ever think about change being part of your artistry? So I think the Sun is going to go from, okay, I'm ready to change, to the first maybe 3 or 4 steps of making the big change. And so you're going to sort of breathe through those early steps of making the big change. Now, this big change may be a divorce, it may be a move, it may be changing your career, maybe changing where you live. It's enough of a change that makes you feel you're going to change and go along with it. So whatever's happening is really symbolic to this transformation, this metamorphosis, this unfolding of your butterfly, if you will, into the world. So this is what it's about, opening up and surrendering to transformation. Now, what has kept you from that? Well, it has been, frankly, Chiron and Aries. You've been wounded about your self-worth. You haven't really thought that the world cared anyways, or they certainly wouldn't pay money, or you certainly wouldn't be so broke if they did care. That is all sort of the drama that comes up with Chiron and Aries down there. But it does mean that making this change is probably what was necessary to really open up and accept your abundance. So the planets are saying you've not made a lot of money because you've been a little overly defensive. And now that you're changing your boundaries, well, now you can let the walls down. Now, the interesting part is Pluto going to Aquarius. Pluto Aquarius step 1 direct says, all right, you have to have default faith in yourself. If you're a Pisces and you don't default faith, like assume the best, assume that you are blessed, assume that everything is fine, assume that God is behind yourself. If you're not assuming that God is behind yourself, then you're going to have immediate crashes, immediate tests of faith. So if things are very stormy, it's because once Pluto was direct on Monday, the universe was not going to put up any more crap with you not loving yourself and not holding that faith as a result. All right. You think you're so special? Well, then don't fall into fear. Right? Now, that said, find that final trio of 24s. The Sun, of course, at 24 Libra is saying, hey, you are now ready to flow with transformation to make this shift happen. And of course, that is going to be squaring Jupiter in Cancer, which means, hey, the only way this is going to happen is if you really are on top of your feelings and how your feelings operate. And of course, your feelings, where they operate, well, your feelings operate very much in a place that we would normally think, right? Being that you have the opposite of Virgo, first of all, you're already very sticky and very dry when it comes to relationships. You have Gemini in the 4th house, so when it comes to feelings, you're kind of sticky, intellectual. So lo and behold, it's only when you follow your dreams that your true feelings come out. So Pisces are being forced into it. Your dreams have got to be aligned with these other aspects. Unless you're following your dreams, you're not going to really want to change. And if you don't want to change, you're not going to really make money. And so you have to get wet. You have to get passionate. You have to get embarrassing. You basically got to embarrass yourself, says Jupiter, and be okay with embarrassing yourself when you admit that you want this for your personal dreams, and that basically be honest to your partner that you want, polygamy, whatever it is. You have to be honest with what your heart wants and emotionally accept that. That's going to be what allows you to make that big change, and that's going to lead to the money. So being emotionally flexible with your self boundaries and letting your child have what it wants, this is what brings in the money, says Sensei, or Sensei says. We'll see. We'll tune in next week for that.
Coming up next week on Sirius Joy TV, join Sensei Christopher and co-host psychic medium Scott Cruz live on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then tune in to ASTRO MINGLE for double the fun as we chat with our returning friend, Michelle R. Jones, and special guest astrologer, Thomas Parsons. Stay tuned for this dynamic duo, the best in enlightened entertainment, only on Sirius Joy TV.